our next speaker. So this is our last speaker for the morning. I hope that you have gotten some good information so far. I'm going to remind you that at the bottom of the screen, we still have the Q&A. So if you have any questions you come up with, you can drop them in there and we'll make sure we address them. Our next speaker is actually a very good friend of mine who I have known for over 30 years. She is a dynamic speaker, and I'm so glad that she is joining us today. For more than a decade, Mira Rollins has been facilitating training groups for all ages. Her education and work experience is extensive and wide-reaching. She has over 15 years of professional work experience as an occupational therapist, working with geriatric adults and physically and mentally compromised adults. Her professional experience, combined with her unique and effective communication ability, creates immensely effective workshops. Mira is a Dallas native who currently lives in Dallas, Texas with her husband, Eric, and her children, Kaiten, Khalib, and Karis. Mira is going to offer some words of encouragement today and talk to us about navigating caregiving. Please welcome Mira Rollins. One second.
COVID-19 has changed all of our plans. We're going to make the best of it in space and through these cyber, each and every one of you, and say hello in person. Because normally when I do workshops, I am hugging, I'm high-fiving, I am wanting everyone to feel just the physical manifestation of my encouragement. But since the Rona, better known as COVID-19, has changed all of our plans, we're going to make the best of it. And I'm going to make sure to give you as much energy and encouragement, and you are going to feel it through this cyberspace and through these cyber waves. So my name is Mira Rollins, and I'm an occupational therapist. I've been a therapist for 20 years. What's that? Well, thank you. Y'all all didn't hear them, but someone just said they can't believe I'm a day over 25. I flatter myself, I digress, and now I push on. So in my 20 years of therapy experience, most of that has been working with patients in long-term care, and it's been amazing. Not every day. Some days are challenging, and I'm sure you can say the same. Some days are frustrating, and I'm sure you can say the same. But I can also say that they have been rewarding and fulfilling, and the journey for me has been amazing. And I can say that the journey of therapy and working with patients with dementia has been rewarding because I get to clock out. I understand, and it's not lost on me, that the difference in your experience and mine is that when 3 o'clock or 4:30 rolls around and I punch that clock, I can leave the dealings and the frustrations of dementia-related care at the job. I even have a ritual. I go to my car, and before I crank it up and pull out of the parking lot, I take my shoes off, let them breathe, let the dogs breathe a little bit, take off my scrub top because it has just what I call people on it. And I put it to the side, and I often thought that it was just me trying to make sure that I wasn't spreading germs to my home and things of that nature. And though that's true, I realize now that I do it primarily as a mental way to detach, that I understand that I leave it there and I'm going to my world and my normal. But for you, I understand that full-time caregiving, there's no clocking in and out. Did somebody just say amen? I understand that this journey that you're on is different than mine because it is repetitive and it is continuous. And for that, I salute you. But not only do I salute you, I want to support you. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I was really like, how can I encourage them? Encourage, revive, refresh. And I want to do that for you. And I am going to do that for you. But what I also wanted to make sure is that we got real and that we did some real work that would last. Because the things that I'm going to tell you will require that you continue to dig into the details. What I'm going to give you today is just top line stuff, but it is going to take your commitment that if I give a buzzword like resentment, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to dig into, am I continuously resentful and what can I do about it? Yes, I can tell you about deep breathing because it works. Yes, I can tell you about going for walks because it helps. But unless we deal with the root of what's overwhelming you, all the other little fruits and little tactics won't fix it. And so I understand that the journey of caregiving can put you in 3 different categories. So think about caregiving like an ocean. Anybody want to go to a beach? I'm so ready for Rona to go away so I can go on vacation. And I love being in the water. It is one of my favorite things to do. And so think of an ocean and waves. And so there's 3 ways that you can handle being in an ocean. One of them is float. Floating doesn't take much energy, time, or effort. You just coast. So that's a category of caregiving that does not exist. It is fictional. If you ever meet someone that's caregiving and they say, oh, it's always rosy and I have all these systems and they all work, they're not telling the truth. So I've never met a floater caregiver, but there are 2 other categories, sinkers and swimmers. And by the end of this conference, I want you to feel confident that you can be in the category of a swimmer. So let me tell you a quick definition. A sinker that's caregiving is overcome constantly and consistently by the waves of caregiving. They are financially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically drowning all the time. Somebody say all the time. All right. Now, the best caregivers can sometimes live in that state of physically and emotionally drowning. It happens to the best of caregivers. But the key word here is that they live in a state, the sinkers do, in perpetual drowning under the waves of caregiving. But then I've met swimmers, and there is a cataclysmic divide, and you can tell them a mile away when you see a swimmer. Yes, the swimmer is still sometimes tired. Yes, swimmers sometimes snap and get annoyed. But for the most part, swimmers have found a rhythm that allows them to handle the waves of caregiving in a way that does not exhaust and overwhelm. And some of you are saying, I don't believe it. There's no way. I promise you, I have met many swimmers. And as I meet sinkers and swimmers, every day I meet them, I understand differences because as I talk with them and meet with them and work with them, there are blaring differences. And so what I wanted to do today is just share with you some of those observations. So the first thing is that sinkers often live in a perpetual state of resentment. And this is where we're going to have to do some real work. I don't want to make anyone feel shame because there is no shame in feeling resentment. Sometimes you are not alone if you feel resentment. Every caregiver on this call and in the world feels resentment at some point. But what I've noted about a sinker is that they live in a constant state of resentment. And you can spot a sinker that's in resentment by they often are angry all the time. Not annoyed, not slightly, not sometimes, but all the time. Sinkers who are living in resentment, often always, even when they're away from their loved ones, they often find themselves thinking and replaying negative incidents that happen. So even distance cannot distract them from the negative aspects of caregiving. Thinkers who are living in resentment also are filled with regret. Now again, not occasional regret, but perpetual regret of asking themselves, why didn't I move away when I had the chance? Why did I even marry him? Why didn't I take that job? And it is constant, and they allow themselves to dwell in that line of thinking. And then another way that you can spot a thinker who's stuck in resentment is that they no longer feel that it's a mother-daughter relationship or a husband and wife, but they often have changed the relationship to one of authority and power. Because oftentimes resentment manifests through the person who is resentful putting themselves in a position of power over the person that they're resentful towards. So those are a few things that allow you to spot a thinker that's locked in resentment. But listen, the swimmers that I've met, and they exist, the swimmers that I've met, they don't allow themselves to get stuck in a cycle of resentment. When they feel themselves on that hamster wheel, they get off. And let me tell you how they get off. They make the decision, and here we go, because it is a decision, because again, everyone feels it at some point. But a swimmer decides to get off the hamster wheel of resentment by not allowing themselves to dwell on what life could have or should have been. They don't allow themselves to think about constantly and consistently what could have been if this hadn't happened. Now, they're real, and they do for a short season, from time to time, mourn the quality of life that they would have preferred for them or their loved one. But once they sit in that for a little while, they decide to change their thinking to what life is and begin to embrace their reality. Thinkers also, when they feel themselves in a cycle of resentment, they also choose to get off by learning not to sweat the small stuff. And another way to put it is that they wisely pick their battles. Let me give you an example. So just last week, I had a resident who was at the table for breakfast, and she had coffee and orange juice. And she decided to mix her coffee with her orange juice. And her daughter was there, and it drove her daughter bananas. And so there was a literal tug of war for the coffee cup. And her daughter was getting so upset, and her mom wouldn't let it go. And I was trying to avoid an explosion of coffee and orange juice. And I came over and I said, "Hey, Miss Such and Such, good morning." And I said, "What's the problem?" And the daughter would just explain to me the situation. And she said, "It doesn't make sense. No one drinks that." And I'm trying to tell her, and I touched her hand and I said, "Hey, what's the worst case scenario?" And I actually made her answer the question. I said, "What two things could happen right now?" And she said, "Well, she's going to drink it and not like it." And I said, "And that's okay." And then I answered it. I asked her, I said, "What if she does like it?" "Well, that's gross." But I said, "But what would happen?" And she said, "Well, I guess nothing." And so I was trying to coach her in the fact that if this is a battle that doesn't cause harm to her or anyone else, why fight it? Why sweat it? I had another client whose daughter hated the fact that her father had this repetitive behavior of going to check the window. He would check the window, look out of it, and go sit back down. Not even 5 minutes later, he would go and check the window and sit back down. And she was constantly trying to rationalize and just let him understand there's nothing at the window. You checked it 5 minutes ago. And she would constantly try to redirect. And so in one of my home health care visits, she brought this up to me. And I said, again, I asked her, "What's the worst case scenario?" "Well, he's just going to do that all day. He's just going to do it all day." And I said, "That's okay." And I said, "Is it hurting him? Is it causing harm to his heart or his legs?" And I said, "It's actually probably pretty healthy. He's getting exercise." And I said, "So no, it's not normal behavior, but we know that our loved ones with dementia and Alzheimer's don't have normal brains. So we should not expect normal behavior. But we need to ask ourselves just a few questions. Is this behavior harmful? Is it hurting anyone? And if not, let me not sweat it. So that is another way that caregivers who choose not to be resentful, they get off that hamster wheel cycle. So I want to pause right now and ask you to reflect on the situation, a battle that you chose to fight that drove you absolutely mad, and ask yourself, was that a battle that I could have just let go? Think about it for a minute. What was the last situation that you and your loved one had a tug of war with, that if you would have chosen not to sweat the small stuff, what's the worst thing that could have happened? Okay? And so here's the thing. Instead of asking, is this normal? Ask yourself, what does it hurt if they did this? Because trust me, and you know this better than I do, that you should save your time, energy, and effort for the next battle, because there will be one, don't you know? All right, another way that caregivers choose not to live in the cycle of resentment is that they don't take things personal. And this one, I know, is a tough one. Let me give you an example of how I know that it's tough. Just last week, I was working with a new resident to me, and the other therapist told me how difficult she was. And I made it my mission to have a wonderful therapy session with her. And she was actually doing really good work with me. I was bringing out all the stops, all the techniques, and we were doing some great therapy. I was sweating. I was working hard. Do you hear me? And so in the middle of a session that I thought was one of my best career sessions ever, she stops me and she says, honey, I don't mean to offend you. And you all know that when someone says they don't mean to offend you, what follows will be offensive. Well, she said, honey, I don't mean to offend you, but you don't know what the hell you're doing. And for a second, it shocked me. And I was like, how could you? I'm working so hard. I thought we were doing great. But I clicked into the fact that I don't take things personal. Clients with dementia, they have no filter. And I know that. They also often have paranoid thoughts. So if your husband is accusing you of cheating, don't take it personal. We know that is a classic sign of dementia, paranoid thoughts. If your loved one never shows appreciation, it's not personal. They at this point do not have the capacity to do so. If your mom only remembers your sister's name and that sister never comes around, don't take it personal. It is not about her love for you. It is about the capacity of her brain. So caregivers who choose not to live in resentment, they don't take it personal, they don't sweat the small stuff, and they choose to physically not dwell on what life could have or should have been. So that's the first big nugget that separates the sinkers from the swimmers. Instead of being resentful, they choose, and it honestly is a choice of intention. Instead of living in resentment, they find ways to embrace their reality. So I want you to say it. Yes, I want you to physically say it out loud right now. I want you to say, I choose not to live in resentment, but I choose to embrace and accept my reality. All right, I trust that you said it. Okay, so now another difference in the sinkers and the swimmers. The sinkers who are being overcome by the waves of caregiving are reactors. And let me tell you what I mean by that. That their every decision and behavior is emotionally charged. It's either driven by anger or by fear or by sadness. And so they're reactors. Sinkers are rarely prepared. They're often unorganized and they seem very, very scattered. They forget appointments. They often have to reschedule conflicting appointments. When they come to the therapy clinic or the doctor, they want immediate assistance because they don't have much time or margin in their schedule. They're often frustrated because people aren't available when they need them to be available, and sinkers often react. want you to be a swimmer, so listen in. Swimmers don't operate in reaction. They respond. And there is a big difference between reacting and responding. And let me tell you the difference. So what happens is with the responders, the swimmers, they often have schedules. Now, I'm not talking about this rigid, unflexible, military-like schedule. But what I am speaking of is just a general outline of the day and the week that allows the caregiver and for their loved one to know what's going on, to know that I have an appointment in 2 weeks, to have a general time that lunch and dinner is. And this way it it leaves room for less error. So do you know what time or when the next appointment for your dad is or for your mom is? Do you use a calendar? Do you set reminders in your phone? How do you keep a schedule? Again, not this rigid system, but just some general outline of what the days and the weeks ahead involve. So, swimmers have schedules, and they also have systems. And there's a big difference between schedules and systems, and you need them both. So let me tell you the difference. A schedule just says very specific, an 8 o'clock appointment or a 10 o'clock appointment. But a system is a broader way of getting the schedule accomplished. Let me tell you, give me an example. So let's just say your mom has an 8 o'clock doctor's appointment schedule. But a system would be if you go to that 8 o'clock doctor's appointment and then you go to check out and the nurse says, we need a follow-up appointment. What time would you like? Well, because you know that your mom is much better in the morning, her attitude is better, her energy level is better, you get better compliance in the morning, then your system says, I do only morning appointments when available. So when that nurse asks you, what time do you want to schedule the follow-up? You're going to tell her, my system is appointments in the morning. So the schedule is Thursday at 8, but the system says, I do morning appointments. Another example would be mealtime. Let's say you do generally dinner at 5. But the system is that, I know that my husband, if I try to herd him to another activity and don't allow good transition, he gets aggravated. So your system would say 30 minutes before any meal, I start telling Dad, hey Dad, it's almost time to eat. Hey Dad, you might want to turn off the TV, it's time to eat. So your system says, I give Dad 30 minutes at least for transitions. So what I want you to do right now is think about the systems that you have in place or that you need to establish, and then also think about your schedule. So give me one schedule and then a system that would help you accomplish that schedule. Now I'm going to give you a few seconds, not to vet the whole thing, but just to simply jot it down. What's a schedule that I need to keep, and what's a system that would help me accomplish that schedule? Take a few seconds. All right, so we're talking about sinkers and swimmers and how swimmers are most often prepared, and they are prepared because they have schedules and systems, and they also have, the third thing is serious conversations. They're talking to their siblings about, hey, if and when mom progresses, what are our plans? They're talking to their employers and saying, hey, I'm caregiving for my mom. Right now she's able to stay at home, but if things change, what are my options? They are talking to their financial planner and looking at, if I have to come home from work to take care of mom, what do I need? They are having death and burial conversations. They are having serious conversations so that they can begin to plan. So what I want you to do right now is ask yourself and jot it down. What are some serious conversations you need to have? And give yourself a timeline to accomplish that. Do you need to speak with your mom's doctor or her therapy team? Do you need to speak with your sister or brother or children? So really quick, write down a few serious conversations that you need to have that will allow you to either gravitate into or stay in the swimmer category. I'll give you a few seconds for that. And the reason that I'm taking a few pauses, even as silly as I may look just sitting here waiting on you, is because I want this to be a workshop to where, again, you take what we talk about and not just leave it here, but actually have some action items to go do. And I love to encourage you and pump you up, but it would not serve you justice if I just cheerleaded for you. I want you to take these principles and go work the plan. So that is the reason for the silly little pauses that I'm doing. All right, so the last thing that I've noticed about sinkers and swimmers is that sinkers are most often just run down. And again, I'm not saying that they don't have, that it's a bad day. I'm saying that every day is the worst day of their lives. They're tired. They're not eating well. They don't have any other relationships outside of the person that they're caregiving with, because they don't pour into other friendships and other families because they're consumed by caregiving. They don't have any outside hobbies or interests, and it begins to just run them down. But a swimmer chooses not to be run down by having appropriate respite. And by respite, I mean just by a system of rest that allows them to detach and decompress. Somebody say detach. Somebody say decompress. You cannot avoid being tired, but you can avoid having a lifestyle of exhaustion. And so there's two types of respite that I think that I want you to focus on. One is more of an episodic respite. That means that, hey, I want to go on vacation, so I'm going to pay for mom to stay at a nursing facility for a week. Or I'm going to pay a caregiver to come twice a week to sit with mom while I go do something for myself. Or I'm going to ask a neighbor to come sit with them for a couple of hours. And I may not leave the house, but I may just go upstairs to read a book. But this is a consistent rhythm and intentional time that they set aside for them to have a decompress time and a decompress period, and to just be uniquely them. And I want you to listen to this. It is unfortunate that dementia, how can I put this? Your loved one is slowly losing pieces of who they are, and that's the reality. But it does not have to be the reality that you slowly lose pieces of yourself. So that's why it is so important to have these episodic respites to where you can tap into the things that make you, you. And I give you permission to continue to foster those. Dementia is unfortunately slowly taking pieces of your loved one, but you do not have to also believe that you have to forego pieces of yourself as well. So what I want you to do is write down a few things that you want to do. Is it a vacation? Do you want to travel a little bit more and you feel there's no way that can happen? Let's write that down. Write 1 or 2 goals of things that you want to do for yourself, and it would be a respite for you. And so swimmers also, the episodic respites, but they also have routine respites. And what I mean by that is a daily or weekly, on the calendar, consistent thing that they do. Is it a walk in the park every single Wednesday? Is it, I'm going to get a book, and before mom wakes up, I get my book and my coffee and I read and have a moment for myself? It's that I go to Zumba 2 days a week. What is it that you, on your journey to becoming a swimmer, what can you build in on a daily and consistent basis that allows you a period of respite? So the episodic respites are the, I'd say, bigger things, but the vacations, or I'm going to get away for a longer chunk of time. But the routine respites or more smaller snippets of things that you do strategically to revive and refresh yourself on an ongoing basis. So now with this one, what I want you to do is have a column or rows. Which one is it? I don't know, I forget. I'm going to say sections, 3 sections. And what I want you to do is put an activity or an event that you want to build into your schedule as a respite for you every single day or every single week. Once you write 1 or 2 of those down, I want you to put in the next section the time and the frequency by which that occurs. And then once you do that, I want you to write down what measures or plans or systems you need to put in place to make that happen. Now I'm going to give you a few seconds. You're not going to be able to finish the whole column, but I want to start you on your way that a commitment that I want you to make is that when we end this call and next week or tomorrow, you're going to take this chart back out and I want you to work the chart. What respite periods do I need to build it on a daily and weekly basis? What time and frequency do they occur? And how and what systems do I need to put in place to make them happen? So, I just want to do a quick recap because I want you to be a swimmer. And again, there's no such category as a floater or a coaster of caregiving. Floaters doesn't take much work. It's on autopilot. It is what it is. I'm just chilling. The very nature of caregiving does not allow for floaters or coasters. But you don't have to be a sinker. You can be a swimmer. And just as a quick recap, swimmers, they resist and release resentment, and they embrace their reality. They are not reactors, they're responders. They're more planful and they're ready and prepared. And lastly, they choose not to be run down, but they are intentional about respite. So again, I salute you, and I am getting ready to, when I end this call, I'm clocking out, and I understand that my journey ends here, but yours is continuous, and I understand that. And I want you to know that I support you and that you can be a swimmer. And a swimmer is something that takes intention, but it is possible. So thank you so much, and I pray that you have felt my cyber energy, and that even if it's 1 or 2 nuggets that you have taken from this to implement in your life. So go and continue to swim and journey on.
All right. Hello, Myra. Turn your, there you go.
Hi.
Say something.
Can you hear me?
Okay, there we are.
Great, great. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much. I was watching it and I was like, yeah, I think I kind of lean too much towards being single. And,
No, I've been with you through this journey. I don't believe that.
I mean, I took a lot of notes, and I hope you guys took a lot of notes too. She gave a lot of information. I realized there was kind of a sound issue. So we're going to send you a PowerPoint presentation with the notes from her presentation.
Certainly, certainly. I will make sure to get that to you.
I think I have an echo for some reason. No idea why. Let's a whole kind of space center setup over there. The volume. No idea why it's doing it. Marilyn, can you mute all the other microphones and all the other except me and Myra? We made it through this entire day with no technical difficulties.
So I think it's me.
That could be the case. My other computer is on mute, and so I don't know. Maybe I'll just close out of that and we'll see. Okay, so 1 second, Myra.
Okay.
Literally have not had any technical difficulties all day.
I'm taking this personal. That was one of my points, but I'm taking this personal.
I'm just saying, is that better, Marilyn? Can you still hear the echo? Okay, I fixed it. We're good.
So it wasn't me.
I mean, no, it wasn't you. It was me. But again, we've made it through the entire thing. Thank the Lord, with no technical difficulties, and I think we have everything fixed now. So we're going to keep it moving. And I realize we're a little bit over our 12 o'clock start time, so we're going to get through these questions. I do have a couple of them. And back to the points. The first question is, we talked about finding respite. And so do you have ideas on how we can find respite on quarantine? Because who knows how we'll be on quarantine.
For sure. I think that respite could be, respite is not a place, it's a state, if that makes sense. So you can get a respite no matter where you are. So to be specific, that could be outside in your rocking chair. That could be, for me, it is inside my car with my seat warmers when I'm trying to get away from my kids. I take a book, I go in the garage with the garage up, and I sit on my seat warmers and read a book. I take a walk. I go to the back of my house and tell my kids, hey, stay away. Mommy's going to be in here for an hour. We can go back to the commercial of Let Calgon Take Us Away. It could be in your bathroom with some music playing. So just to reiterate that respite is not necessarily it's a place. It's anywhere where you can escape, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And a term that I like to use for myself that I speak with a lot of my friends about who are moms and wives is margin. We don't have a lot of margin in our life because of schedules and cooking and work, but where do you have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and just maximize the margins of your life?
Okay. I think what I found, and like I said, I've been doing this for quite a while, and Marilyn and Austin, she's been a caregiver for 12 years, is the, I guess, techniques that you mentioned. You don't adopt those things overnight. It's kind of like a muscle that you build, and you kind of get better, the longer you're a caregiver.
Yeah.
Even don't take it personal. Don't sweat the small stuff. In the beginning stage, that's what you're gonna do. It's just a natural reflex if somebody is, yelling at you, or somebody is saying something that you don't think is true. You're gonna take it personal. You're gonna sweat the small stuff. It's gonna seem like large stuff. But I think over time, kind of started to realize how to work that muscle and how to develop that skill and really use those points.
Yeah, I think it's often, like you said, just like you have to practice it and literally say it out loud. Sometimes you have to say, I'm not gonna take this personal. I understand that it is the nature of the disease. I know that he's not doing this intentionally. He's not doing this you have to say those things out loud and repeat the truth, repeat the facts so that the feelings don't overwhelm. Repeat the facts so that the feelings don't overwhelm you.
Okay, so then another question, what expectations do you have to let go of as far as your relationship?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. The key word is expectation, because you've looked to the future, and whether it be for 10 years, 15, 20 years, you thought about the vacation house that you were going to have. You thought about what retirement would look like. You thought about whatever your life goals were. And you do have to let go of the expectation that doesn't fit your current situation. And I don't know what that would be. But like, for example, if you did dream of moving to Hawaii and retiring on the beach, and now because of finances and situation, you do have to say, I have to go through the process of how do I let that go. So it's different for everyone. I know, speaking specifically for you, Veronica, knowing you as long as I have, you know, you are I travel all the time. I find the cheap ticket and I'm gone, and I don't grow grass under my feet. And that's something that you've had to change the expectation of how often you come and go. But in the same process, once you let go of the expectation, then you say, I may not be able to do that in that way, but how can I still accomplish that? So using you as an example, you don't travel as often, but you still are intentional about when and if I can, you still go. And you have set, family in place that can help you with that. So it may not be the fullness of how you saw your life at this point, but you have still made a way to do it and a way to still meet that desire in some way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's about being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
About all of this, everything that you do as a caregiver for yourself, for others, the scheduling, the system, you have to be intentional. It's not just going to happen. And so, even to your point about traveling, that's something that I did before I became a caregiver, and I don't do it as much. And I'm clearly not able to do it now. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very intentional about, I got to get out of here. I got to do it and making it happen. So I really encourage everyone to, whatever that thing is, be intentional about being able to do it. Another question Barbara Punch just asked: my loved one does not realize he has a problem and he wants to be with me all the time. It's hard to leave even for a while without him. I find it hard to find respite time at home. Any suggestion?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things is being okay with disappointing your loved one. I think that oftentimes, because we feel that they've been given the short end of the stick, they're sick, they're ill, dementia is taking this part of their life. There's this part in us that says, whenever they need me, I'm going to be there. And I don't want to leave them with someone else because I know they don't like it. That would disappoint them. I don't want to go for an hour because I know he wants me there. That will disappoint him. You have to be okay within that particular frame of reference. You have to be okay with disappointing your loved one in that manner. Now, if someone took that out of context, that wouldn't make sense. But in the confines of what we're talking about having a loved one that has, because of their disease process, unrealistic expectations of us, then we have to be okay with disappointing them. Because when anyone, whether it be someone with dementia or someone else in your life, in your family, when someone places unrealistic expectations on you, you have to say, okay, what is realistic? What can I accomplish? And what can I realistically do? So in that situation, number one, be okay with disappointing your loved one in that manner. And then also finding someone who you trust to stay with them during that time, whether it be your children, whether it be a neighbor. And if your loved one hasn't progressed to the point to where he's unsafe to stay at home, then set him up to where he's safe, get him fed. Maybe you can leave during the time of his favorite TV show. Like if you know that he can sit down and watch Steve Harvey back to back for at least an hour, then leave during that time. So be strategic and intentional about choosing when you leave and choosing who you leave them with. So that would be the three things off the top. You're going to have to disappoint him at some point because he's going to want you there all the time, and then you would never leave. Second, who can you leave him with that you trust, and setting that up on a schedule. And then thirdly, when is the best time to leave him that he would be most occupied and miss you the least?
Those are excellent points. I totally agree, 100%. Okay, the next question is, what do you do if they don't need a caregiver?
What if you do if your loved one says they doesn't need a caregiver?
Yes.
Because of dignity, I try not to compare our loved ones with dementia with children, but oftentimes it is the same rationale. Like I have an 8-year-old, and I'm not going to allow her to tell me that she doesn't need someone to sit with her. I just can't depend on her judgment. So it's so funny. She heard me say that, and she came back in and gave me a very like.
My mom is sitting here in the room, and she said,
We have 2 different amen corners.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we don't depend on their judgment, but we try to maintain their dignity in the best way we can. So instead of saying, yes, you need someone to sit with you, you know you're not safe to stay at home, maybe we can say, Veronica's coming over to visit us today, instead of putting it in the confines of someone's coming to sit with you, or we're having company, or someone's coming over, or Veronica's coming to help me fold some clothes and do some housework. She's blessed me in that way. So she's going to come over for a couple of hours and help me with some housework. So put it in a different way that's not someone's coming to sit with you, but giving that sitter another job to do while they're at the house, or making it just they're coming to visit. So, okay. And you know, oftentimes one thing I tell people is that everything is not going to work. Exactly. I might give you this tip and it may not work for you. And so what we often find ourselves doing is saying, oh, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. I've tried that. But you have to keep trying. And what if you try 100 things and 25 of those work? Then that just made caregiving 25% easier. And I know you can say that 25% was worth it.
I agree. I mentioned that earlier with our other presenters about how all of these tips and strategies are not going to work for you and your loved ones. You just have to keep trying different ones. And I think something else is we realize it's easier said than done. You know, like this is a difficult job. It is. There is no doubt about it. This is a very difficult job. And so a lot of this stuff is easier said than done. I think it goes back to being intentional. It goes back to the relief and the help that you'll feel in the long run. You know, it's a long road.
It is.
You know, and we don't even know how long that road is. It's very unpredictable. So I think it's important to put all of these sink or swim ideas that you gave us. I think it's important to put the swimmer techniques into place. And sometimes you might be wading water, and sometimes you might be doing a breaststroke. You know, and sometimes you just keep your head above water, but we just don't think. And I think that the tips that you gave will really help us with that. Are there any more points in your presentation that you want to recap, or?
You know, just reiterating that I'll definitely send it over in a form in which it will almost be like a worksheet, because it's one thing to read over it, but what I really encourage and implore every caregiver on the call to do is to go back through the presentation and actually jot it down. Like I gave an example of, you know, what are some things that you want to do for your personal respite? And then right next to it, put the time that it occurs, how often, the frequency, and then how can I accomplish this? Like what specific things do I need to put in place to make this happen? And so if you hear me say it and say it's a good idea, but then you don't really sit down at your kitchen table and say, you know what? I want to go to my Zumba class. It happens twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It happens at 12 o'clock. Who do I know available at 12 o'clock that can come to? If you don't do that, then, you know, it will never happen. So, you know, we keep using the word intention. In order for you to be a swimmer in this caregiving journey, you have to be strategic and intentional. And it's not going to come just like through osmosis. It's not just going to fall into place. I wish I could say that. But when I labeled the categories of sinkers and swimmers, it's literally because I have met these families, I have shaken their hands, I have listened to them, and the common thread is that they were very intentional about how they make this journey of caregiving doable. So that will be my summation, is that it all is intention.
All right, well, we are wrapping up here. So let me just tell everyone, again, we cannot meet in person, but because we are virtual, Mira is actually in Seattle right now. So she is able to join us from Seattle, which she would not clearly have been able to do if we were meeting here in DeSoto. So we're very glad that she's able to join us today. And thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and actually, wait, come back. Turn your mic back on real quick. How can they?
Okay, definitely just visit my website at mirarollins.com. And at that website, it'll give you links to all the things that I'm doing and where I'll be next. It'll have my blog where I do some writing consistently. It'll have a place where you can reach me by my email and sign up for my email list. So I would send everybody to that hub, mirarollins.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Mira.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
Okay. Whew. This was a lot of information.
Really?
I have a visitor in here with me who is turning into the popcorn gallery, but we're almost done. We're gonna wrap up. Just a couple more things. First of all, I want to thank our partners today. They were Oxford Glen Memory Care, Global Alzheimer's Platform Foundation, Garland Behavioral Hospital, and PC Home Health. I also want to thank our presenters, Kira Buckley and Portia Andrews from Hey Healer, Andrea Baum and Lindsay Goldap from Stomping Ground Comedy, Carolyn Osenik from Spirit of Compassion, and Mira Rollins from MiraRollins.com. And so I just want to thank everyone who participated today. I really hope that you guys got some good information that will help you on your journey. I did an event like this last summer in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association. This is our first time as Dementia Care Warriors kind of doing an independent event. And so I'm so excited that we were able to do this. And I'm so excited you were able to join us. And whenever I do any kind of event or any kind of sharing, I always want it to be helpful to the caregiver. As a caregiver myself, you know, sometimes you listen on these workshops or attend these workshops and it's a lot of fluff. I really hope that you got some meat out of this today. I really hope that you take away some things that you can use. Early next week, I will send out a link with a replay of today. And so if you want to go back and listen to any points, you can do that. If you want to share it with anyone, feel free. Also, when I send that replay link, I'll be sending a survey link to do a quick survey just to get some feedback from you on the event and anything, you know, you think that we could do differently or any takeaways that you took away that actually helped you. And so we would love to hear from you to find out how you know, and what you thought about the event. Let's see, if you want to reach me, I can be reached at hello@dementiacarewarriors.org. That's my email address. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at Care Warriors. And so we'd love to have you follow us on there. We post a lot of articles and education and resources on there. And so just different events that are going on around town for caregivers or even just online for caregivers. So if you could follow us on social media at Care Warriors, that would be great. On our website, there is an abundant resource section. There's a lot of links to different organizations that could be helpful. And then there's books, there's products. So if you go to our resource section on our website, I think you'll find a lot of good information. And Mary Lynn is going to also give us some closing words.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that we are doing online activities, and I think this is something we're going to probably continue for a while. So if anybody is not signed up, currently we're only doing it with our current members, but we're going to expand that, and so there'll be more information about that on our website, both online and maybe delivering activities to your house. So let us know. And I'll put my email address, just email me and you can get on the mailing list, so email list, so that you can get notices. And we are doing the online support group. The next one is Tuesday, and it's with the Alzheimer's Association. It's been very helpful for people that are stuck at home and not being able to get out in person. So thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Stay safe, and again, you have our contact information. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to us. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we will see you next time.